The morning sun blazed over Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, casting long shadows across the tarmac where a dozen F-16 Fighting Falcons stood in perfect formation. Captain James Mitchell, callsign Hawk, stood before his squadron in the briefing room, his jaw tight and eyes fixed on the mission parameters displayed on the screen behind him. He was 32 years old, lean and focused, with the kind of intensity that made junior pilots straighten their spines when he entered a room. This wasn't his first deployment to the Middle East, but it was his first as squadron leader. The weight of that promotion sat heavy on his shoulders, heavier than the flight suit he wore or the helmet tucked under his arm. 12 pilots. 12 lives, all his responsibility now. The statistics haunted him every night. Over the past 2 decades of continuous combat operations, 80% of fighter squadron leaders didn't make it through their command tours. Not all died, but most were removed from duty after catastrophic losses, mental breakdowns, or decisions that cost lives. The pressure to maintain perfect judgment while flying at Mach 2 with million-dollar missiles and billion-dollar jets was a special kind of hell that only a few hundred people on Earth truly understood. James had watched. His own squadron leader, Colonel Richards, carried out on a stretcher 3 months ago after a training accident that killed 2 of their best pilots. Richards never flew again. The man's hands shook so badly at the memorial service that he couldn't salute the flag-draped coffins. Now James stood in that same position, briefing his team on Operation Desert Viper, a strategic air superiority mission over hostile territory, in support of ground forces pushing through enemy lines. Intelligence reported heavy anti-aircraft installations and at least 24 enemy fighters in the sector. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, callsign Phoenix, raised her hand from the front row. She was 26, Stanford graduate, top of her class at flight school, and possessed a tactical mind that impressed even the most seasoned veterans. Her father had been a Navy pilot who died when she was 12. She flew like she had something to prove to his memory. "What's the ROE on civilian structures near Target Bravo, sir?" James pulled up the map overlay showing the compound nestled between 2 residential neighborhoods in a city of 500,000 people. "We have strict parameters. No engagement unless we have confirmed hostile activity, and 0 probability of collateral damage. Command wants this surgical Captain Marcus Webb, callsign Reaper, leaned back in his chair with arms crossed. He was 35, had more combat hours than anyone else in the squadron, and carried himself with the swagger of someone who'd survived what others hadn't. Some said he should have been squadron leader instead of James. Surgical in an urban environment, with AAA batteries and SAMs everywhere. That's a suicide mission dressed up in pretty briefing slides. The room went silent. James felt every eye turned toward him, waiting to see how he'd handle the challenge. Leadership wasn't just about making the right tactical calls. It was about controlling the room, maintaining confidence, keeping doubt from spreading like poison through the ranks. He stepped forward, meeting Marcus's stare directly. "Every mission has risk, Reaper. That's why we train harder than anyone else on the planet. That's why we trust each other with our lives. Intelligence gives us a 4-hour window when their radar coverage has gaps. We hit fast, we hit precise, and we come home. All of us." Marcus held his gaze for another moment before nodding slowly. Not quite respect, but acceptance. The briefing continued for another hour. Weather patterns, enemy capabilities, extraction protocols, emergency airfields, communication codes. James covered every detail twice, answering questions until there were none left. His voice remained steady, authoritative, but inside his chest his heart hammered against his ribs. After dismissal, the pilots filed out toward the flight line. James remained behind, staring at the mission map, running scenarios through his mind for the 100th time. Every decision tree, every contingency, every possible way this could go wrong. Sarah appeared in the doorway, helmet in hand. "Sir, can I speak freely?" James turned, nodding. "You're thinking about the statistics, about Richards, about all the leaders who came before." He didn't deny it. She stepped closer, her voice quiet but firm. "Those leaders failed because they forgot they were human. They tried to be perfect, to control everything, and when they couldn't, they shattered. You're different. You're asking the right questions. You're listening. That's why we'll follow you anywhere." James wanted to believe her. He wanted to feel the confidence she projected. But he'd seen too many good people die because someone made one wrong call at one wrong moment. "We wheels up in 2 hours. Get your head right, Phoenix." She nodded and left. James stood alone in the briefing room, the air conditioning humming overhead, fluorescent lights buzzing softly. Through the window, he could see his squadron performing final checks on their aircraft. 12 jets, 12 pilots, 12 families waiting back home. The mission clock on the wall counted. Down, 0147, 23. 80% didn't survive their command tours. He intended to be in the other 20%, but intention and reality were often very different. Things at 30,000 feet when the missiles started flying. The mission launched on schedule. 12 F-16s roared into the Nevada sky before turning east, then south toward their operational theater. The flight to the combat zone took 4 hours, with 2 mid-air refuelings over the Atlantic and Mediterranean. James led the formation, constantly scanning his instruments, checking in with each pilot, maintaining situational awareness across 12 different positions. They entered hostile airspace at 0400 hours local time, under cover of darkness. The plan was simple. Approach low, use terrain masking through the mountain valleys, pop up for targeting acquisition, deliver ordnance, and exit before enemy air defenses could get a solid lock. But plans never survived first contact. Hawk actual, this is Overwatch. We have new intelligence. Enemy has repositioned SA-15 batteries along your primary ingress route. Recommend alternate approach via Corridor 7-9er. James felt his stomach tighten. Corridor 7-9 would add 12 minutes to their approach and put them over more populated areas. The window of radar coverage gaps would shrink to almost nothing. Copy Overwatch. Break. All call signs, we are switching to alternate approach. Follow my lead. Maintain formation discipline, weapons tight until my command. The squadron banked south, dropping even lower to stay under radar coverage. Mountains rose on either side, dark silhouettes against the pre-dawn sky. This was precision flying at its most dangerous, threading the needle between terrain and detection. Then Phoenix's voice crackled through the radio, tension evident despite her training. Hawk, Phoenix, I have a warning light on my weapons system. Targeting computer is intermittent. James's mind raced through options. Send her home? Continue with 11 aircraft? Adjust the strike package? Phoenix, can you maintain formation and provide cover? Affirmative, but I cannot deliver ordnance. Before James could respond, Marcus cut in. Hawk, this is Reaper. We are already undermanned for target coverage. If Phoenix can't strike, we need to scrub or adjust objectives. This is getting too tight. James felt the weight of command crushing down. Every second of hesitation was a second closer to mission failure or worse. The intelligence they were acting on had a shelf life measured in hours. If they scrubbed now, those enemy positions would relocate and ground forces would face heavier resistance. American soldiers would die because he chose the safer option. But if he pushed forward with compromised capabilities in hostile airspace with reduced margin for error, he could lose pilots. His pilots, his responsibility. The radio crackled with static, waiting for his decision. All call signs, this is Hawk. We continue mission. Phoenix, you are now dedicated cap for the strike package. Reaper, I am redistributing Phoenix's targets to your section. We stick together, we trust our training, and we complete this mission. Acknowledge one by one, his pilots confirmed. But in the brief pause before Marcus responded, James heard something in the silence that made his blood run cold. Doubt. Not in his pilot's abilities, but in his judgment. The kind of doubt that got squadron leaders relieved of command or killed. The squadron pressed forward through the mountain corridor, every pilot's nerves stretched tight as wire. James flew lead, his eyes moving between instruments, terrain, and the tactical display showing his formation. They were 3 minutes from the pop-up point when everything changed. Spike, spike, spike. SAM launch bearing 270. The warning screamed through James's headset. His training took over instantly, all call signs break right. Deploy countermeasures. Phoenix, go high and identify the source. The sky erupted in chaos. Flares burst from every aircraft as the pilots yanked their jets into hard defensive turns. The surface-to-air missile streaked upward, its solid rocket motor painting a brilliant orange trail against the darkness. It locked onto one of the flare signatures and detonated harmlessly 300 feet away. But James knew what this meant. They were burned. The enemy knew they were coming. Hawk, Phoenix. I have visual on the launcher. It is mobile unit, not on our intelligence brief. They are repositioning now. James's mind calculated instantly. The mobile SAM meant enemy forces had changed their defensive posture. The intelligence was compromised. The mission parameters had fundamentally shifted. Marcus's voice cut through, urgent and sharp. "Hawk, we need to abort. They know we are here. We stay, we die." James looked at his display. They were so close. The target was less than 2 minutes ahead. Ground forces were depending on them to eliminate those enemy positions. But Marcus was right. The tactical situation had deteriorated beyond acceptable risk. For 3 seconds that felt like hours, James weighed lives against mission success. The math every squadron leader faced. The calculation that destroyed 80% of them. Then something clicked in his mind. A different approach. A solution that honored both the mission and his people. Negative on abort. All call signs new plan. Reaper section. You are now the diversionary element. Head north, make noise, draw their attention, and SAM batteries. Phoenix, stay high, provide overwatch and threat warning. Viper section, you are with me. We go low, terrain masking. Hit the primary target while they are looking north. 30 seconds in and out. There was a pause on the radio. Then Marcus responded, and for the first time, James heard something different in his voice. Not doubt, respect, copy, Hawk, Reaper section, follow me north. Let us make some noise. The formation split. Marcus led 4 aircraft on a high-speed run that lit up every enemy radar in the sector. The SAM batteries swung north, tracking the apparent main threat. If you are watching this and pulling for these pilots to make it home, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next will determine whether James joins that 80% or rewrites the rules of command. James dropped his section to less than 200 feet, screaming through the valleys at 500 knots. The target compound appeared ahead, exactly where intelligence said it would be. Weapons free. Execute. The strike was surgical. James and his 3 wingmen released their precision-guided munitions simultaneously, the weapons tracking true toward the enemy command bunker and ammunition depot. 4 explosions bloomed in perfect synchronization. Secondary detonations confirming direct hits on the targets. Target destroyed. Viper section egress west. Reaper, break contact and rejoin. But as James pulled hard into his escape maneuver, Phoenix's voice exploded through the radio. "Hawk, Phoenix!" Multiple bogies inbound from the east. I count 6, correction, 8 enemy fighters closing fast on Reaper section. James's blood turned to ice. Marcus and his 4 aircraft had drawn the SAM batteries north, but they had also drawn something worse. Enemy fighters had scrambled and they were vectoring straight toward the diversionary element. Reaper, Phoenix. "Bandits closing your position, 12 miles and closing. You need to run now." Marcus's response was calm, but James heard the tension underneath. "Negative, Phoenix. If we run, they follow us home and engage the strike package. We hold them here." James realized the terrible mathematics instantly. Marcus was outnumbered 2 to 1. His section had already burned fuel and ordnance on the diversion. They were at a disadvantage in every tactical measurement, and Marcus knew it. But he was buying time for James and the strike package to escape. "Reaper, Hawk. We are coming to support." "Hold on, James, get your people out. That is an order from your second in command. Complete the mission." For a moment, everything James had learned about leadership crystallized into perfect clarity. The statistics, the failures, the 80% who didn't survive their command tours. They failed because they chose between the mission and their people. Marcus was telling him to choose the mission. But James had learned something in that briefing room, something Sarah had tried to tell him. The best leaders didn't choose. They found another way. "All call signs, this is Hawk. Viper section, continue egress but swing north, combat spread. Phoenix, go supersonic, get between Reaper and those bandits. Use your radar to paint targets for everyone. Reaper, you are not holding alone. We fight together or we do not fight at all." The radio erupted with acknowledgments. James slammed his throttle forward, the afterburner kicking him back into his seat as his F-16 accelerated toward the fight. His wingmen followed without hesitation. The sky over the desert transformed into a 3-dimensional chess match at supersonic speeds. Enemy fighters dove on Marcus's section, but Phoenix arrived first, her radar warning screaming in the enemy cockpits, forcing them defensive. James's section came in from the flank, missiles already tracking. Fox 3. 2 enemy fighters exploded before they knew they were targeted. The remaining 6 scattered, their coordinated attack broken into individual survival instincts. And in that moment, outnumbered and outpositioned, James's squadron transformed from 12 individual pilots into a single weapon system. Marcus's voice came through, and James heard something he would never forget. "Hawk, you magnificent bastard. Let us finish this." The dogfight lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. 4 minutes that felt like a lifetime compressed into moments of pure instinct and training. James's squadron moved like they had rehearsed this exact scenario 1,000 times, even though they were inventing it in real time. Sarah positioned herself perfectly, using her malfunctioning weapon system as an advantage. Without the burden of ordnance, her jet was lighter, faster, more maneuverable. She became the eyes of the entire squadron, calling out threats, painting targets with her radar, creating opportunities for others to strike. Fox 2, bandit down. Another enemy fighter spiraled toward the desert floor, its pilot already ejecting. The remaining 4 enemy aircraft tried to regroup, but Marcus's section had recovered their defensive posture and now pressed the attack with renewed aggression. James tracked an enemy fighter through a high G-turn, his vision narrowing at the edges from the force, but his hands remained steady. The targeting reticle moved across the enemy jet, the tone in his headset confirming lock. Fox 2, the missile leapt from his wing, tracking true. The enemy pilot never had a chance to react. Another explosion painted the dawn sky. The last 3 enemy fighters broke contact, diving for the deck and running for home. James started to pursue, but Marcus's voice stopped him. "Hawk, let them go. We are Winchester on missiles and low on fuel. Time to go home." James checked his instruments. Marcus was right. They had pushed every limit. Fuel gauges showed yellow. Weapons stores were empty. Every warning light that could illuminate without being critical was lit. "All call signs form on me. We are going home. Phoenix, take us out." Sarah led them through a different egress route, away from known threats, using her tactical mind to thread them through the safest corridor back to friendly airspace. The squadron fell into formation, battered but intact. Not a single aircraft lost, not a single pilot down. As they crossed back into friendly territory, the radio frequency erupted with congratulations from command. Intelligence confirmed total destruction of primary targets. Enemy command structure in that sector was crippled. Ground forces were advancing with minimal resistance. Mission successful. But James barely heard the praise. He was counting his aircraft, visually confirming each one, making sure all 12 jets were accounted for. 12 pilots who would see their families again. 12 people who trusted him with their lives, and he had brought them all home. Marcus pulled his jet alongside James's, close enough that James could see him through the canopy. The older pilot raised his hand in a salute, not the casual gesture pilots usually exchanged, but a formal acknowledgement. Respect earned in fire. James returned it, feeling something shift inside his chest. The weight was still there, the responsibility of command, but it felt different now. Not crushing, but grounding. Not a burden, but a purpose. Sarah's voice came through, light and relieved. "Hawk, Phoenix. Permission to speak freely?" "Granted." "Sir, I think you just figured out why the other 20% survive." 18 months later, James stood in the same briefing room at Nellis Air Force Base. But everything had changed. The walls now displayed photographs of his squadron. Not from that mission, but from the 12 successful operations that followed. 12 missions. 0 losses. A record that was already being studied at the Air Force Academy as a case study in modern leadership. He was preparing to hand over command. His tour was complete, and he was being promoted to lead an entire fighter wing. The transition briefing was in an hour, but he had arrived early, wanting a moment alone in the room where it all began. The door opened. Sarah entered, now wearing captain's bars. She would be taking over as squadron leader, the youngest woman ever to command a fighter squadron. Behind her came Marcus, who had accepted a position as her executive officer, choosing to stay with the unit rather than take a command of his own elsewhere. "We thought we would find you here," Sarah said, crossing the room. "Reminiscing?" James smiled. "Remembering. There is a difference." Marcus leaned against the briefing table. "You know, they are rewriting the leadership manual because of what you did. The tactical flexibility doctrine, they are calling it. Trust your people. Adapt in real time. Never sacrifice either mission or personnel when creative thinking can save both." James shook his head. "I did not invent anything. I just refused to accept that those were the only options." Sarah moved to the window overlooking the flight line. The same 12 aircraft sat in formation, though some had been replaced or upgraded. New pilots were running pre-flight checks, the next generation learning from the foundation James had built. "You changed the statistic," she said quietly. 80% used to fail. Now they are teaching your methods to every new squadron leader in the Air Force. You did not just survive your command tour. You transformed what command means. Marcus added, "We got calls from Navy, Marines, even Army Aviation. Everyone wants to know how you did it. How you brought everyone home every single time." James thought about that question. He had been asked it dozens of times in debriefs, interviews, and lectures. The answer was always the same, but people kept expecting something more complicated. "I listened. I adapted. And I never forgot that every call sign on that radio was a human being who trusted me with their life. The mission matters, but the people executing it matter more. Get that balance right and everything else follows." The three of them stood in silence for a moment, three pilots who had been forged together in fire and come out stronger. James checked his watch. Time to brief the new squadron. They deserve the same chance we had. As they walked toward the door, Sarah turned back. "Thank you, sir, for showing us there was another way." James paused in the doorway, looking back at the empty briefing room one last time. "No, thank you for being willing to follow it. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If this story moved you, if you felt the tension in that cockpit, if you celebrated when they all made it home, please hit that like button and leave a comment below. What kind of story would you like to see next? A tale of courage from another profession? A different country, a different challenge? Subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. Your suggestions fuel the next story, and I cannot wait to share it with you. Until next time, remember, leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being present, adaptable, and never forgetting the human cost of every decision. Fly safe.